Boy.
Hey everybody. So we are doing the Angel Study Group, and last week we did a little bit of Q&A, and let's do at least a little bit of that tonight before we jump in and do a little bit of a practice. So let's keep it about angels if we can, and anything goes. So go ahead and fire away.
You can always unmute yourself. You can type in. If you have a private question, you can type it over to Apothecary Geek. Can I overdo working with angels?
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be different from person to person, but you know, if you're real new to it, I would say start a little bit slower. Definitely do some of the angel practices, the classes. Some of the classes we did for free, so even if you can just access some of the old classes, that really helps prep the body for doing deeper work with angels. But you know, if you're doing the classes that we've done in the past, I would say it would be hard to overdo it. I mean, you can sit down in a single session and really kind of overdo it, but doing it consistently over a period of time. The issue with working with angels is that you know, you're really harnessing light and the creative process, the creative evolutionary process. And so I would just say sometimes that the pace of how things happen and shift can sometimes be a little bit accelerated, and that can be a little bit intense, especially if you're not used to it. But it's definitely how we were talking about, like shifting from trying to reach a state of, you know, calmness or peace or whatever, and you're really embracing that idea of becoming, you know, like a flow, like you're flowing like a river with the angels. And so, you know, that's a lot of times why when we ask about like what angel is good for this and that, it's and I refrain from saying it because it's not really about, you know, we're still coming at it from the point of view of our sensory mind and managing our senses and those states of fixation, when the angels are actually the opposite of that. And so, you know, we don't want to pigeonhole the angels and limit the things that they're doing. But at the same time, when we really start embracing and working with the angels, it can make things flow and shift in ways that are good, but you know, sometimes it takes us a little while to acclimate to it. And so I would say, you know, that's going to be different from person to person. One person might only want to do little tiny bits of it at a time, and another person might want to go leaps and bounds, and you know, not be too phased with the shifts that happen. And so, you know, the more that you work with them, the shifts tend to be more subtle. You know, at first the shifts can be kind of big or a little bit jarring, but over a period of time, they become more refined because the process is being engaged. So the point of all the different classes, I think there's what, Angel 1 through 5, is to make the shifts and transitions as smooth and as gentle as possible. You know, when I was taught to practice in my youth, we were just thrown in the deep end, you know, and, you know, either you made it or you didn't. And to be honest with you, it was rough for a little bit. And, you know, as time went by, it was like, there's got to be a way to work with this and not have it be so rough. And so that was the point of those classes. But as now as time goes by, you know, you can jump in and go and do some things like a little bit more direct. And so that's even the thing that we're going to be doing a whole series on different angels throughout the year, and both archangels and just regular angels, and taking the work of a specific angel and going very deep, specific to the angel. This will greatly increase the connection to this angel, but it will make shifts. So, if you feel like it's starting to be a little too much, just back off a little bit. Give yourself a little bit of time. Spread it out. Better to do it consistently over a period of time than a whole bunch at once and then not doing it again for 3 months, 6 months, something like that.
Go ahead, Marianne.
Hey, Marianne.
I feel like this is a strange comment to make, but I'm trying to understand myself a little better. Initially, I had a very strong resistance to anything to do with archangels.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah.
And I have no idea why. And I knew that you were quite involved, and I started, to attend some of these sessions, and I'm just overwhelmed by my response.
Oh, good.
It's so positive, and
Yeah.
something happens.
Yeah, I would agree.
Especially when you do the meditations. I mean,
Right.
it's been, and there's something it speaks to me, and
Yeah.
it just seems so important. And I don't quite know how I can understand my resistance, or what that was all about.
Well, the resistance a lot of times, our physiology doesn't like changes, doesn't like shift. I mean, that is literally the very definition of stress. Like, stress is basically something is making the body change, be it for good or for bad. It's making it shift. And so it engages a kind of stress response. And so what happens over a period of time is the body doesn't go, hey, this would be good for you, this would be not so good for you. It just is like, sees the potential for there's change, not going to participate. And it's not even like on a conscious level, but the body is pretty good at knowing the things that will bring it stability and comfort, and the things that might push it out of that state of stability for a short period of time and cause a shift or a change. And so the angels definitely engage like the evolutionary process, or the flow, versus trying to just work towards like a state of peace or stillness. It's almost like this becoming of like deeper levels of peace and stillness that just continually grow and evolve. If you think about the expansion of light, it's not like it gets to a certain point and then it stops. It keeps going and going and going. And so that is a process. It's becoming, something different than what it was just a moment ago. And so that idea of that movement to the body is like opposite of what the body is. And so in a way, you could say that is the very definition of like the higher soul, and then the lower nature of the body that resists the higher soul, or the Buddha nature. Wow. The Buddha nature, or the higher soul, is very expansive in nature. The body is very condensing in nature. Its thing is condensation. And so the play between the two produces all phenomena in the universe, but also is what accelerates our growth for the higher soul or for the Buddha nature. But the body will naturally resist that state of expansion. It will naturally resist that process. It will naturally resist that higher soul or Buddha nature, because it is literally like the opposite of what it is. And so that it happens is pretty normal. Like that's not a reflection on anything other than you're in a body. I mean, honestly, that's what it is. And so the idea is like, okay, when it happens, how do I deal with it? What do I do about it? Do I, a lot of times what we do is we actually engage it or reinforce it and go, well, this is just the way I am, and this is what I do. And if you think about, like, we're really wanting to identify more with the essence of what we are, the higher soul, the Buddha nature, whatever word you want to use for it. We want to identify more with the essence or the flow rather than the structure or the body itself.
Right.
And so you can see that, like, the body has these certain tendencies that resist that expansive state, but that is really more our true nature than the body. But the body is so strong and so dense that it really can shift us out of being aware of that essence, because the essence is so subtle.
Yeah.
And so it really can pull you away from that. And, I remember Imaho saying one time, he said, it's like you take a nail or a paper clip or something and stick it to a magnet, and a magnet representing gravity or the physical form. And he said, at one point that nail or that paper clip forgets who it is and thinks that it's the paper clip or the nail and the magnet. It thinks that it's both, when really it was always just a paper clip. And it's almost like a kind of a silly explanation, but you can see, like, how much of an impact the physical form has, and even just the effect of gravity has on our emotional body, mental body, but our perception of the inner light, the higher soul, the Buddha nature, that expansive state or that flow or process. And working with the angels really kind of reignites that. It brings us back into that. And our body has to be trained to work with that. It's not really a willing participant, And so, I mean, a lot of times with practitioners that have been doing it for a while, they're just better at tempering the body because they've had a lot of experience with it. But it's not that goes away. They're just more practiced at it. Like, if you did it for 10 years and you go, yeah, I'm gonna stop doing all these things, it would just start going back to the way that it was. You know what I mean? It's the body has certain wiring that you're just not going to undo. But you can temper it, and temper it means, Imaho said this to me like many years ago, and it's like, you're not making it go away, you're making it sharper so that you can bring it forward on a dime and then keep it quiet when you don't need it. And up until then, I was always trying to make things go away, or this or that, or I want to get rid of this tendency. And there's certain tendencies you're not going to get rid of, but you can sharpen it and put it in the drawer so that you use it just when you need it, rather than it running amok. And when you're tempering the body, that's a lot of what you're doing, is you're tempering certain things so that they're an asset to you and they're not just running amok, but you're like, controlling them is not the right way, but you're interacting with them and engaging them, but it's not on autopilot all the time. You choose when to use it and when not to use it, so to speak.
Well, the exposure I've had, I've been feeling a pull in that direction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Angel
Very,
work
very strong and very positive.
and
And
angel work is very powerful. The ancient times, they called it theurgy, and it was considered like that, combined with alchemy and the science and utilizing planetary energies or astrology were considered like an accelerated path for spiritual development.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the only archangel that I was familiar with was Michael.
Right.
And so I haven't explored others, and
Mhm.
I'm very happy with Michael.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
when
yeah.
do you explore others? I mean,
Well, the planetary class that's coming up here pretty quick, there will be playing with 7 archangels there. Michael being one of them. Raphael, Gabriel, Uriel, Zafkiel, Zadkiel, and Anael. And then through the year, we're going to do some one-day classes that are just going to be on one angel or archangel.
okay. Yeah, it's fascinating.
Yeah, it's very fascinating. Yeah, I agree. And and I've had students who like sometimes the shifting was happening so much, and they weren't ready for it, or the preparation hadn't been enough, that it kind of freaked them out a little bit. I mean, that is the potency of working with angels, especially angels the way that we're talking about it. Very different than what I was taught, like in Catholic school and things. And so, this is really embracing that pure energy with consciousness. And I would say for the most part, most of the angels are like emanations from the heart of God. Sometimes some of the angels are emanations from other aspects of God, but most of them are helping to develop the heart in a very big way.
I went to parochial school and until 8th grade, and I was very, very fond of my guardian angel.
Right.
But the archangels weren't ever really discussed.
Not a whole lot. Yeah,
And-
not a whole lot.
And I couldn't understand my resistance to it. So
Yeah.
your explanation is
Yeah.
helpful.
So I've shared in other classes, like, since you grew up in parochial schools, when I was in 4th grade, they told me to pray to Mary because Jesus is busy. Don't pray to Jesus, pray to Mary. Jesus is too busy. They're just explaining something to a child, but it was like that always stuck with me. I was like, really? Jesus is too busy to... Oh, okay. Like, that's kind of a weird one, but
I think
and a nun told me that. Nun.
Yeah, I believe it.
Yeah.
I think we all have some stories.
Yeah, some just weird thing that just gets said. And
but it's important to me to find the positives in my religion of origin. I had to practice Sufism for a while.
Yeah.
And it was there that I learned the true meaning and had developed an acceptance of my religion that I was born into. And it was helpful to let go.
Yeah. The Catholic tradition has a lot of esoteric principles buried within it. We're not taught it openly, but like when you start delving into it, there is a lot of deep esoteric things that either are, hidden for the few or just have been forgotten a bit. But the Catholic Church is very esoteric.
Yeah. So thank you. And thank you for all that you offer.
Yeah.
It's wonderful.
Thank you.
Is there an optimal way to identify which angels to work with?
Boy, that's a good question. Yeah. I tend to do things that like they're drawn to, but there's also the practical side of like when you're working with a energy center or a planet, or the more that you start interacting with them, the more that you can kind of base your experience on what happened when you work with the angels. If you're not sure, Metatron or Michael are always two good places to start. Really super good. Raphael is another really good one to start. Because Raphael has to do with healing, but it would be more like healing through transmutation, and it working with the angel Raphael helps one to shift from that state of thinking about what you want and then forcing it on the environment, and shifts you to where you're able to observe the environment and go, okay, how do I shift myself to adjust or to step away or whatever it is? It really aligns how you perceive and interact with the external environment. And so if you're not sure, I always would say go to the 4 archangels of the directions first. Being Raphael, Gabriel, Uriel, and then Michael. And I think I can say this like in a nutshell, but I'm not going to do it justice. Raphael has to do with shifting how we process the environment, the external world, and just allows information to come in. Allows you to take in information and make those shifts and adjustments to the environment. It allows you to adapt, right? Gabriel, which would be associated with also being like a messenger. It's tied more through, once the information comes in, then applying yourself, but refining yourself as you're applying yourself. Because we can take in information, we can have ideas, we can have spiritual teachings, but until they get applied, a lot of times we don't realize that we maybe don't understand them completely, or we have misperceptions. So through the application, it refines how well we understand the information that came in. We can refine it and go, okay, this part works, this part doesn't, this part I have to make an adjustment. So it's almost like revitalizing yourself or regenerating yourself, which is like letting go of the things that aren't working or that aren't true, to apply yourself to get closer to the things that are true, or closer to your true nature. Then you go to the east with Uriel or Uriel, and this becomes higher creativity in a sense. It's basically the angel of the void or the white light, and here you're beginning to bring down through the observation, then through the application, and now through that refinement, you're starting to bring in the higher soul and the mixing of the aspects of the lower nature, and how to have the higher soul use the lower nature as its vehicles, right? The physical body, emotional body, mental body. And so higher creativity is the ability to take higher soul or divinity and mix it with the form. And some of that is already starting to happen when working with Gabriel, but it becomes, Gabriel would also be tied to why I'm saying, wait, this can really get out there, and without explanation, sometimes it might just seem odd, but Gabriel would be tied to the mixing of spirit and matter. And then Uriel would be the refinement of that mixture, right? The refinement of it. And then you go to Michael, which is tied to the south, is now that mixture is there, now there starts to be a greater flow of the soul energy, the Buddha nature mixed with the form. The next phase is then to begin to regulate the lower nature so that it can handle more soul energy coming in, right? So at first the processes are being established, but then when you start to go into the fourth component with Michael, it is through that regulation of the lower nature, then more soul energy, more light can come in because of the regulation. Where before, what would happen is light came in or soul energy would come in and it might feel good, but it would actually make the body, the physiology, and even the emotions and mind sometimes be a bit chaotic. And so, because you're shifting, you're changing, you're engaging a process. And so here it's like the Michael comes in and holds a sort of stability so that more can flow through the form. Significantly more can flow through the physical form. And so just by working those 4 archangels, you're really accelerating the evolutionary process. You're accelerating divine intelligence, or creation or creative process, and it's a way for the soul, the soul to evolve through the tempering of the lower vehicles. And so when you look at just even working with those 4 archangels, there's a lot of work to be done with just those 4 archangels without even stepping into any of the other angels. I mean, like sometimes when I think like, which one should I do? And I have all kinds of ones that I love working with. But if you really worked just those 4 archangels really super well, it would make a difference in your spiritual growth and probably your psyche pretty quickly. Yeah. I mean, so we're going to go in depth first with Michael, and at first I was going to do all 4 archangels in like a weekend class, and I started thinking about it. I was like, for one, it's going to be way too intense. We won't be able to practice everything, or I'd have to lighten it up. And then also, it's too much information for a weekend. And so I was like, we could talk about Michael for a whole day. And then I started thinking about it, I was like, why not just do that? Like, why not just talk about Michael for a whole day? Why not talk about Metatron for a whole day? Why not talk about Raphael for a whole day? Because again, going back to the angels of the 4 winds or the 4 directions, there's, what's that old saying? A lot of jelly in those donuts. Not to make light of working with that, but there is a lot to work with just with those 4 archangels.
Did you had your hand raised earlier?
Hey Greg, Happy New Year.
Hey, how are you?
Good, good. Yeah, I just had a question about how working with angels affects the physical body. When I
Mhm.
was doing some of your angel classes, maybe last year, I had ringing in my ears and I started to have some kind of weird pains throughout the body. And I was wondering if that was
Did they,
common.
it can be.
Okay.
Did the pains bounce around or did they stay in a particular spot?
Yeah, it seemed like sometimes it did bounce around.
Yeah, so okay, so the thing with pain, so I'm gonna address both. Like, so the thing with pain is sometimes what happens is you start to surface like old I'll call it conditioning, but it's just like old like traumas, old times where people projected a bunch of negativity towards you, or times where your feelings got hurt, or it could be just a whole range of things. And so as things come out, some of this is actually lodged in the body, especially in the fascia. And so it might be releasing from the spine, but when things start to come out, or just even if you look at it from the point of view of just pain in the body itself, right? Like there could be 4 or 5 areas in the body that are causing pain, but the thing that you feel is the thing that hurts the most. And the thing that hurts the most overrides the pain and other parts of your body. And then what happens is you go through and you treat that one thing, and all of a sudden that thing goes away. And then you go like, oh, I got that to go away. But then this other part of my body was hurting. It was always hurting. It's just your brain wasn't perceiving it because the primary pain was so intense that it overrode the stimuli getting to the brain. And so it's very common when you unwind like a pain area or a pain mechanism, that other pains will pop up because now you're able to sense those. And so then you can go through and you can treat. And so that pain bounces around is sometimes what's happening is you're unwinding these past events, and as they're processing and being let go of, all of a sudden other things start coming up. And so it's actually quite good when the pain is bouncing around, not always comfortable, but it can be good when it's just stuck in an area. That usually means that there's like probably some sort of blockage or some sort of congestion in that area, which would still be like a blockage. And so that needs to be addressed more quickly. But a lot of times when the pain is bouncing around, a couple salt baths and maybe a little deep breathing, and it usually should pass and integrate really quite well. The ringing in the ear sometimes happens because the energy coming in from the angels is pure energy with consciousness. So another way of saying that is, basically spiritual energy. Like life force is energy, but it's not necessarily energy with consciousness. The energy of the soul is energy with consciousness. The energy when you pray to Christ or Buddha is an energy with consciousness. And the same with the angels. They're an energy with consciousness. And so when they come in the body, when they come in the emotions, the mind, your body is needing to assimilate that. And part of what happens is through the assimilation, the body tries to assimilate it as quickly as possible. And so how that happens is it tries to raise the vibration of the body. And so a lot of times, like say if you're praying or you have meditation and you go, well, I feel peaceful, but I don't really feel anything. Thank God, that was my first like several years of meditation. I would sit quietly, I would feel peaceful. I could hear other people like blissing out, and I was just like, yeah, I feel relaxed, but I don't really feel anything else, right? And part of it was the vibration of the body was not high enough for the spiritual energy to. It was still there, it just wasn't registering in my brain. And so and sometimes it's not even that it doesn't register, it's that it could be that you use a part of the brain that's not sensitive to things that are more subtle. And so one of the ways that your body raises the vibration is the center opposite your navel on the low back. And this is known as the Ming Men. And so part of what the Ming Men does is it takes lower vibrational energy and it shoots it up towards to the heart and the head, and then scatters it through the body, but it shoots it up, right? And so sometimes what it's doing is it's trying to raise the vibration of the body very, very quickly. And when there starts to be an excessive amount going up, especially, things have gotten displaced a little bit, lower vibrational energies, a lot is moving up. A lot of times what happens is it will hit the jaws or the ears. And so the energy will make your ears like ring a little bit or make like a little buzzing sound. The other issue too is that energy with consciousness is also another way you could say that is frequency. And so they actually it also has like a sound or a tone. And so that's why we talk about like toning with the names, is because you're kind of trying to draw in a certain kind of tone or sound. And so I've even had where I had the ringing in my ears really bad, and I was in like kind of a crowd, and other people could hear the ringing, right? Could hear the ringing. And so sometimes it's internal and sometimes it's external. A lot of times when you're hearing like a buzzing sound in your ear, it's actually not the nerves in your ear, but your brain, the like transmitters, the receptor sites aren't firing kind of like they should. Like it could be too much, could be too rapid, it could be something that's very different than what's happened before. And so that will manifest as buzzing in the ears, but it's actually not coming from the ears. And so one of the ways to offset that is the use of like cystis can be very helpful for the brain, like both sides of the brain. I did make that blend for Lobes, which is actually to help condition the brain to be able to handle like higher levels of spiritual energy or angelic energies, planetary energies, things like that. And but cystis is very good for that. And even in the Bible and the Old Testament and the Torah and things, even when they would talk about cystis, they actually would talk about it in code. Like, and for why, I'm not quite sure, but they wouldn't even talk about it too directly. And I think part of the issue, because I really have reflected on this quite often. I was like, why would they do that? And if somebody really hadn't spent time doing purifications and then started invoking angels and kind of making it so that the brain could handle it and they could take it deeper, but they really didn't do a lot of the other practice, it could cause some chaos in their life just because they're maybe not ready for the shift or the change that could happen from doing an angel practice. And so, I think it's just tied to that. I mean, I could be wrong. I mean, it's hard to say. We'll never know. But that part kind of makes sense to me. But if you feel that you have that issue a lot, because for me, it comes and it goes. There'll be times where it does not face me at all. Yeah, and there'll be times where I'm just teaching and it will start to happen. Like not even working with an angel. It's just like me teaching and it will start to happen. And so, and then there's times where I do deep meditations, deep practice with, an angel or deity and nothing, like no buzzing sound. And so, it's one of those things that you just have to kind of stay on top of a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And if it's happening, it could be that you're hitting a deeper layer, you have a greater connection. Could be that maybe some stress is throwing the body out. It could be that maybe you're not getting some good sleep. I mean, so you just start looking at like what's going on. And if everything seems to be okay, like you're sleeping good, you're not under a lot of stress, it's just probably something deeper is happening.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
We do have a few minutes. I did have a couple more
Yeah,
questions.
that's fair. Yeah.
The maximum number to work with at a time?
Again, it depends on person to person. Um, you know, the more angels, the stronger it gets. And so ease into working with more and more at once, you know. The most that I would say is, you know, doing like say the version of Lord's Prayer with the angels, which would be 11. That's probably hitting max. But maybe at first just a few at a time. You know, I think here or in the Astara events, we've done, you know, half a dozen, and a couple of times I've done like, 11 for the energy centers. That's getting pretty strong. You know, even when I'm doing it, like my ears are buzzing, like what she's talking about. It goes away in an hour or two, but it can be quite intense. But, you know, sometimes when I do like what was that? Memorial Day, is that the one that's in May? Memorial Day, yeah, I think where we do the fire blessing for Astara. I'm wearing the Buddhist helmet and invoking the holy names. My ears buzz for about 2 weeks after that. Like I can barely hear for a day or two because the buzzing sound is so intense. But yeah.
Someone said, I like working with obscure archangels and angels.
Yeah, you and me both. Yeah.
After hearing your discussion, why are we not starting with Raphael instead of Michael?
It's good to kind of work with something that people are more familiar with so that you can start to see some of the experiences. We will tie it all together at some point, but Michael's a good starting place for helping to regulate the lower centers and prepare the body. And so there's different ways of working the 4 directions. One is going clockwise, and then one is going counterclockwise. And so the stronger version can be going counterclockwise. And so we are going counterclockwise. We're going to mix Metatron. We're going to mix some other things in there, but the 4 archangels, we're going to go counterclockwise.
What's the best way to use 4 lobes? Inhalation? Is there a pattern?
Yeah, no, I mean, you can do the pattern that's like a cranial pattern, but if you just inhale it and put your awareness on the brain, it's pretty substantial. Yeah, a lot of times I just do that. For the ones that were in the class this last weekend, remember like going from the front third to the middle third to the back third, going in between the base of the skull, going as deep in the brain as possible. The more you work the different aspects of the brain, the better.
Any angel particularly good for sleep assistance?
Yeah, no, it'd be hard to say. They're not really for like symptoms and things. It would be more for evolutionary process. So it's different than treating for conditions. Yeah. So okay, you guys. It's right about I think 8:15. So okay, so we will actually do a practice again next week, but I want to do a couple Q&As for a few because we've been doing practice so long that wanted to do questions and answers for a little bit. And so
the person specified who said the sleep thing, they said they want to unravel resistance.
Unravel resistance to
unraveling resistance to maybe that's what you're asking to something.
Yeah, it's just like resistance to like can you be a little bit more specific? Just psychological resistances, resistance to the higher soul.
Resistance that may be preventing sleep.
Oh yeah. Again, it's hard to treat something that's a symptom of the body. It's more about like the evolutionary process within. It's not really geared so much for that. I mean, I would, yeah, that would be hard. Yeah.
They did say it's probably psychological.
So, okay, you guys. So hopefully you can join us, the ones that have the vital centers, for the 99 aspects of the heart tomorrow night. And some of you will see for the harnessing the law of cycles this weekend. The angels of the 4 seasons are finally in the class. So, yeah.